I'm not sure you can patent a charming, malicious, villainous sneer, but if you could, it would be patented by Gal Dukat here on V'ger Please, a vile visit to Bajor. My name is Joseph.
In the future, there is no laundry. You just put your dirty clothes in a bag and shoot it with a phaser. I'm your co-host, Peter.
So, Peter, you and I are going to have another long talk, I think, before we start talking about this week's episode. We did this last week, and I think it was deserved because we started to get introduced to the concept of the Maquis formally in terms of the timeline of Star Trek. And there's a lot of stuff we talked about there that we this episode feeds into as it relates to the Maquis concept itself not being fully baked, not completely justifying itself. And I don't want to rehash that, like you said. I believe we have to kind of make a Dear Doctor level exception where
I never forgave Dear Doctor.
we don't have to forgive it, but we don't have to bring it up every time, right? Like the Maquis existence is not sufficiently justified.
Here's the difference. Enterprise was trash for 2 seasons, and by the time season 3 rolled around and they started getting good, it became easier to not have to focus on the super bad parts, whereas Deep Space Nine has been consistently good, and something like the Maquis is not great, but there's enough other excellent stuff floating around that it's not as prominent.
And to that very point, I feel like the better way to talk about this stuff is in how these last third of the season of season 2 is kind of representing the templating of what Deep Space Nine is going to be doing in the future as Ira Steven Behr takes more command of the narrative, as the Voyager crowd, the Michael Piller and Jerry Taylor and even Rick Berman go off to make their big network show on the UPN and leave this little syndicated job behind. And it's Ira Steven Behr, as we talked about before we even really launched into Deep Space Nine formally, is the real creative voice that made the show as good and beloved as it became. And sure enough, his name is on the teleplay for this. And he speaks in the Memory Alpha at length here as to his intentionality. And I'm going to read it real quick here to say, according to Ira Steven Behr, the line, "It's easy to be a saint in paradise," from Sisko's speech in this episode, was a result of him always wanting to dig deeper into Starfleet and see what Earth really was like and to examine the paradise Gene Roddenberry had envisioned. Indeed, Behr had wanted to do this on Next Gen, but had never been allowed. I've been waiting to say this line in Star Trek for a long time. We need to dig deeper and find out, indeed, life is like in the 24th century. Is it paradise, or are there, as Harold Pinter said, weasels under the coffee table? And that is the more interesting thing to consider when we start getting into these episodes. Not did the writers truly fully bake the Maquis when they put it out, and is there some holes in the justification of their existence that you could drive a truck through? Sure. But is the overall thought about the Federation ideals clashing with Federation realistic political decision making very valid and very interesting thing to start to explore? Absolutely. And this episode does that quite well.
I'm not blind. I see what's going on, and we've had some great episodes in season 2, and here we are in the back half, opening with the focus on Bajor, and I think stabilizing that situation to putting it in a point where it's manageable, right? Like, I think the uprising, the Civil War story was just kind of, okay, here, let's put a lot of attention that the main function as we've known it for Sisko, it's turbulent, but now it's stable and it's good enough for this moment. Some zany space adventures, a series of unfortunate events where Miles O'Brien's wife is told that he's dead.
What if I told you we've got one more of those this season?
Another drop in the bucket, I'm sure.
Yes.
But I know the Dominion War is coming, and I know that's going to be the main focus of Deep Space Nine moving forward, and we're going to start heating things up with the Cardassians. So this is very clearly a transitional point. I was interested to hear when we were talking a little bit off air that like these were test episodes to kind of feel the temperature in the room as to this kind of storytelling. And I guess I'm curious, like, how what's their schedule, right? Again, TNG had gone on 6 seasons. This shouldn't be slapdash bullshit. Are they finishing all the scripts before they start recording? Are they doing scripts 2 weeks before they actually start recording? Like, are they able to course correct real time? Or is all this stuff already forecasted and out? Because if they're leaving themselves room to like change future episodes within the season, then testing this makes sense. But if, they're like, all right, here, everything needs to be submitted by this date, and then we're going to move forward with recording as an entire season. You know what I mean?
I don't think they've planned 7 seasons of the story arc, but the level of continuity that they've managed to engage in even up to this point.
I mean, as far as the tone of the storytelling goes, because that's what
Yeah.
it seemed to me like he was saying.
And I think that the tone shift is this last third of the second season. Because you have to think about how the production of everything is working right now. It's 1993. Right. Trek is at the height of its power, as we like to talk about. TNG is ending. It is going to be nominated for an Emmy for Best Dramatic Television Show, which is going to be a huge deal for them.
Mm-hmm.
DS9 is ramping up to sort of take its place within the syndication world, a world that's still very vibrant, by the way, that's still very profitable, which is why Deep Space Nine, I think, continues to have a relatively high level of production all the way through, even though it's not a network anchor anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You have, in fact, Star Trek about to take over as the template television program for a brand new broadcast network in primetime. So that effort is about to begin. Voyager launches concurrent with DS9 Season 3. So, and then you've got Generations. We're going to be making a movie. We're going to be making multiple movies, ultimately. And so, as you have these opportunities to explore deeper and deeper into this universe you've built because there's a demand for it, naturally that's going to bring you to a point where you're going to want to start to treat your own premise with a greater degree of seriousness than perhaps you had in the past, because that's where you haven't quite gone yet. And as Ira Stephen Bear said, when he was working on TNG, and then Ron Moore, same thing, when he's going to come over and he's going to be a big part of this too. They've had these ideas for a while. They just weren't allowed to do it in TNG because that had a very strict, still deeply influenced by Gene Roddenberry vibe as it relates to the utopian ideal. And
also, it's raking in cash.
Oh yeah, that too.
And you don't
popular
fix what's not broken.
Right. And so maybe you couldn't do that with TNG the way you wanted because you just didn't want to upset a very popular and profitable apple cart. But now you've got your own little piece of the puzzle. You've differentiated it from everything else very nicely. And now we're going to go ahead and indulge in what I think is the true value proposition of Deep Space Nine. And that is, what if we really actually looked at the underpinning of the philosophy at work here and we tested it using more realpolitik circumstances? And nothing to me says that more, particularly in this episode, than Gul Dukat. Dukat has shown up in a number of episodes up to this point, but he's just sort of like a villain in the background. Now he's a character in the show. Now he's going to have a story arc that starts right here. And a lot's going to happen where he's going to evolve and change and be a real factor in what's going on, not merely as an antagonist, but obviously, as we see, as an anti-hero, as somebody who's partners with the main characters quite a bit, despite being quite obviously very evil. Right? Lawful evil, but evil nevertheless. And I think that is the taste that we're getting is to the direction. Not so much the Maquis, not so much the big speech, which is great about it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Those are good. We'll call them sort of mission statements, and they'll develop those, I think, better down the line, not necessarily with the Maquis, but with the Dominion War and everything that comes with it. But it's more Dukat's presence and how he factors into what's going on and how he becomes a key player in what's happening here, essentially with the overall support of your idealistic Federation members. That adds a very interesting and intriguing texture to what's happening. And I think that as Ira Stephen Bear gets his hands on this thing and it's his to explore, he seizes in all of this, and his instincts are ultimately extremely strong, which is why the show turns into something that becomes, for many people, the peak of Star Trek.
Watching this all develop and seeing the directions they're ready to start leaning, the continuity, the fact you got to be paying attention to what's going on the screen, again, further highlights why Voyager was the fucking clown show it was. That it was the anti-DS9, and that they did stuff in Deep Space Nine that they couldn't do in Next Gen, and I can see the production camp being like, all right, this is good, but we're going too far. And again, Voyager's just being this over course correction back to what they felt TNG was, and somehow completely missing the mark. And not only failing to capture Next Generation 9.5 times out of 10, but also leaving a lot of stuff on the table in terms of continuity and self-reference and growth, right? And progressive storytelling. Because Deep Space Nine was doing it so aggressively. They're like, no, those are Deep Space Nine toys. We can't touch those, or we don't want to touch those. And it just leaves you with this pretty ship that's devoid of good content.
I mean, in the end, I think when we analyze the best producing voices in the Berman era, it's going to be what? Manny Koto and Ira Stephen Bear, who are the ones that are aggressively deciding that the way to engage an audience in Star Trek is to authentically take the world seriously and its references, and to build and explore and evolve it.
You know, you say that, but at the same time, you went back and watched that TNG episode and came back starstruck. So let's not count TNG out. And
The difference there, I'm sorry, the difference is that Patrick Stewart is so fucking good on that show that it just doesn't matter what else is happening. That's actually what struck me. I went back and watched Reunion to clarify. People in the Discord know this. After we watched the Blood Oath, and he is so magnificent at just making you believe all of this is real, because he's such a serious actor, that it makes everyone else better around him, and it makes the show good. And I don't think that is Rick Berman's doing. I don't think that's any particular person in the production's doing. I think it's because they got a generational talent to do a fucking sci-fi syndicated show on US television, and they went 150% in on them. That's it.
Maybe. I guess we'd have to watch Next Gen as an entire series to see, and
I'll threaten me with a good time.
Well, there's season 1, so it's not
okay. Don't threaten me with also a good time for completely different reasons.
Oof.
Okay. So, and one last thing. We talked a lot about the context in which things were developed when we were doing Enterprise, particularly season 3 and 4, because it was very post 9/11 GWAT, as Feral Historian would say, type of story. By the way, shout out to you, Feral, for continuing to watch our show and comment on our YouTube. We appreciate you.
Nice.
Loved your video that you did about Stargate, by the way. And in the same sense, this is 1993 when this is being made. This is like peak America in many ways, just past the Cold War ending.
No social media anywhere to be seen.
Right. Just America is the single global hegemon, and it feels like we're getting into that sort of end of history phase where there's total peace on your planet for all intents and purposes. And the Federation is the most America-coded thing that you could possibly imagine. It's a multicultural, pluralistic, creedal nation state with democratic principles that purposefully tries to integrate other groups into its creedal nation status, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to start doing storytelling then, if you're like living in that world, that explores, well, what happens when there might be an exogenous threat that you don't understand. First, it's the Borg, and second, we're going to get into the Dominion that disrupts that status quo. And then secondarily, like, okay, you've established paradise. You've established ideals. You try to live by them. What happens when you fail? And what happens when those ideals conflict with the rational decision-making of a nation state to try and preserve peace? I like that, right? And to thinking about it in the terms of the early 90s, max American hegemony, end of history phase of the modern era is worth noting when we kind of run into these things. So anyway, thank you for indulging us, everybody. Now let's begin. Peter, what did we watch this week?
This week we watched season 2, episode 21, The Maquis Part 2, first aired May 1st, 1994. Teleplay, Ira Stephen Bear. Story by Rick Berman, Michael Piller, Jerry Taylor, and Ira Stephen Bear, and directed by Corey Allen.
So this is just starting right off where we left our heroes, literally on a jungle asteroid somewhere in the Badlands. Not super clear. Where Calvin Hudson is now in civilian gear, and he has pulled all of the guns on Sisko, Kira, and Bashir, who have come to try and find Dukat. And we have a teaser that's really Sisko and Hudson having a conversation about Hudson's newfound desire to play at being a resistance leader and terrorist, and Sisko attempting to convince him that this is a terrible idea.
So we had a last time on Star Trek, which it's been a while since we've had one of those.
Yeah, I got used to them in the Enterprise era. That's not something we've seen
season
here.
Season 3.
Yeah, got it all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of always when you can tell shit's getting real. Like, I feel like it's the producers kind of nudging you, be like, "Hey, you paying attention because this is going to get confusing, right?"
Yeah.
All your complaints about this guy, Calvin, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I felt like you were kind of overreacting in part 1, but in part 2. The fact that Sisko doesn't instantly sell his ass out and throw him under the bus to Starfleet, right?
Right.
And he lets this shit go. He death row Sisko, who has gone off for far less than transporting down into a fucking ambush while he's trying to rescue someone who had been kidnapped. He turns the other cheek on Calvin so many times. He gives this guy so many opportunities to come back into the fold. He begs him to come back into Starfleet. And I believe it's a genuine offer of like, hey man, we'll just sweep all of this under the rug. You put your uniform back on. We completely gloss over the fact you were involved in a high level fucking diplomatic kidnapping. And it can be cool, right? And this other guy just shits his side of the bed so hard through the entire thing, it makes Sisko look dumb. Like
they're trying to build this tension of having these two ideals essentially have an argument with each other throughout the episode. I know that's the intention, and they want to put it in the context of this guy Calvin Hudson being a peer to Sisko, a longtime friend, and somebody who he is deeply hesitant to destroy, essentially to destroy his reputation, destroy his career, potentially harm or even kill if necessary. I get that. Unfortunately, because the other guy is not a very good actor, he's not carrying his side of the load. He's not convincing you of this. And it makes, like you said, Sisko just look stupid rather than somebody who is truly the threat of the fact he's about to betray someone close to him, or at least he's going to perceive it as a betrayal of someone close to him. When he has, very few of those kinds of connections left. He values that he has this friendship with this man because he knew his wife. They've known each other the whole lives, blah, blah, blah.
It's a good character. It's a good concept. I would have liked to see it played well. It's just, this guy sucks.
Yes.
He drags the whole thing down and he squanders the entire potential there. So you've got Sisko pouring fire into these scenes, and which should be very good. And this guy, it feels like he just finished memorizing the script about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. He's worried about his car in the shop or something.
Yeah. He's adding no urgency and no passion. I mentioned in passing.
That's exactly it. There's no passion. This guy's not even bringing the intensity of someone like engaged in an HOA meeting.
I mean, compare him to Kira. right? Like, I mean, maybe that's unfair, right? Like, Nana Vistor is just always at 150%, but he just doesn't seem to raise his heart rate above 80 at any time in any of these scenes.
His level of investment feels like someone who went to Cece's Pizza Buffet and was mad that there wasn't enough sausage pizza. Like, he's not fucking furious, but like, you know, he paid to get in there. He was really looking forward to the sausage. The pepperoni was good, but there wasn't any sausage out. You know, and you go to Cece's, you're looking for I'm mildly inconvenienced by this, and I don't have anything else to talk about right now. So we're going to talk about how unfair the Cardassians are being to these colonists.
Perfect. I mentioned in passing last week, like, imagine this role if it was played by like Denzel Washington.
Oh,
you know, like you could have found the right, even black male actor. I mean, Denzel Washington might be just like a moonshot, but I mean, you already did get Frank Langella. You've got serious people just this season on the show. If you had an actor who could bring the intensity necessary to match with Avery Brooks and build on them being people who were very close to each other, who have very fundamental different ideas, this could have worked easy. It just doesn't. Fortunately, there's other things that are going to work in this episode that make up for it.
Is his name Dukat?
His name is Dukat. So after they have the talk and after he rejects Sisko's offer for returning, Hudson and his merry band just stuns the three of them and tells them we got to go because before Death Row Sisko wakes up and hammer hands all of us and just leave.
You know, the line's in there. It's just a uniform, Ben. You're talking to a guy who went in the sweatbox twice over that uniform, all right?
Not the right person to make that argument to.
Yeah, you might want to go back and rethink that one. I don't know how you feel about the TNG style two-piece, but Ben is very closely aligned with this jumpsuit, man. He is in it for the purple turtleneck for life.
When we cut back, we go back to Deep Space Nine, and that is like where things are definitely becoming real. And our first taste of that is Kira meets up with Sisko, and I think Dax as well. And they're like, yeah, two things. One, there's a Cardassian admiral, a legate, who's on his way to talk to you. Oh, and by the way, Admiral Nechayev is in your office right now. You should go talk to her. And sure enough, he pops in, and my favorite Starfleet admiral, the one who is always there if some shit is happening, some dirty shit is happening, Elena Nechayev is there to show she is an equal opportunity dress people down lady. And she doesn't matter if it's Jean-Luc Picard or Benjamin Sisko. She is going to impose herself on them.
I drove all the way out here. I was sad they didn't show her ship docked. And I'm noticing a lot of special effects cost cutting going on right now. So clearly there's going to be some fucking action coming up here towards the end. I think once
I think you know what it is.
Hey, yeah, I drove all the way out here to the ass end of the Federation Reach to have a 4-minute conversation with you, and then I am gone. There's no I'm not staying here to oversee things. I'm not telling you like what else I'm doing out in this area. I just showed up to be shitty to you, and now I am gone. Deep Space Nine is very uncomfortable. Deep Sheets 9, nobody wants to hang out at a gas station, and any visiting dignitaries that have to go out there get out as quick as they can, both her and the legate.
You know, no one wants to stay on the local Doom level if you don't have to, right? Like you want to get in and out as quickly as you can. I think actually the actress for Nechayev was doing, I think it was a preemptive strike or whatever that second to last TNG episode was, and they just had her come over and do a scene for Deep Space Nine.
Why not, like, man? They got her fitted. Yeah,
come on over.
Got her fitted, and you know, finally, it's an admiral costume that doesn't look like a clown. Sisko flat out lies to her, and I can't think of a situation like this before. Like, did Picard ever flat out lie? I don't think so. He certainly took Admiral the fuck was his name? Chakotay's orders to evacuate earlier this season and bent those as far out of shape as he possibly could to buy as much time on the station because they had
Yes.
to, remove all the Federation paper clips from the waste stream.
Yeah, get all the Federation screws out of the bulkheads. Yeah.
But for him to lie to Nechayev of everybody, right?
Right.
This isn't Admiral Chakotay. This is Nechayev. So he's covering for Calvin Hudson. Again, further reinforcing that Sisko is giving this guy a legit get out of free jail card, which is very... Does this fit his character type?
It technically, I think, could, if you really believed these two were deep, personal, close friends. It's just the failure of that relationship to be established through, a peer acting capacity, I think, is what damages why he's doing this. I could see a world where you could believe this is something he would do.
He let O'Brien off the hook when Tosk or whatever, the most dangerous game episode, right? Yeah. Miles went on a killing spree and let him come back to work after he sabotaged transporter systems and stuff.
Dax literally just went and committed murder and came back. Zero punishment.
All right, I don't think we need to go any further.
Yeah, sent Kira out on a Black Ops mission without permission from anybody else. Yeah, this man lies to admirals. It's all good.
Well, I'm just saying, as far as forgiveness of subordinates and peers to do dirty and come back to the side of the fence.
Yeah, he's clearly comfortable with that. Nechayev's imperious attitude as it relates to Federation citizens having to act like Federation citizens no matter where they're from is what ultimately prompts Sisko to unveil his first big Star Trek captain speech. Picard certainly is a master of this, but I'll just read the whole thing. On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise. Well, it's easy to be a saint in paradise, but the Maquis do not live in paradise. Out there in the demilitarized zone, all the problems haven't been solved yet. Out there are no saints, just people. Angry, scared, determined people who are going to do whatever it takes to survive, whether it meets with the Federation's approval or not. This is the first sampling into where we're headed, right? Of the Federation is not a place that necessarily has the prerequisite self-awareness to understand the separation between its expressed ideals and the realism of the universe in which it exists. And because things are good on Earth does not mean it is good everywhere.
The problems with the Maquis bleed through pretty bad here. Nechayev's disregard of the situation and just simply they're Federation citizens and they need to act like it, when very clearly in this Maquis circumstance, they're cut off from the Federation. And I think it really starts becoming arguable if they really are Federation citizens. So I think you'd have to agree she is the most competent admiral that we have seen in Star Trek, right?
Correct.
And the least cartoonishly villainous.
Yes.
So this fundamental misunderstanding of what these guys really are hurts. And maybe she's just, towing the party line in front of a subordinate and behind closed doors. She's like, these guys, she agrees. Who knows? Because she drops the hammer pretty hard on Sisko and is like, are you questioning Federation policies, Commander? No, I didn't think so. Shut up.
I think it's actually a pretty good way to demonstrate the sort of rigid, semi-authoritative way in which the Federation views its ideals, and how someone like Nechayev, who's probably used to dealing with problems closer to home, isn't prepared for life on the frontier.
And she's involved in all the dirty shit along there. She sent Picard out on, And
this is where I lament about... If you're going to have Nechayev here, you could have bridged this into, this is an intelligence opportunity for us, right? That is the decision that should have been made when they brought her in to say, Sisko, you're going to find out what the fuck is going on here. And I'm not telling you to squash the Maquis. I'm telling you, we got to figure out how we can use this to our advantage, right?
Right.
That would be more the move. And I think that when Ira Stephen Barrett does get his hands on this and he introduces his admiral character, Admiral Ross, who is the best admiral ever on Star Trek, he masters that formula.
So Nechayev leaves. Then in comes Kira Nerys, standing in the doorway where the last time we saw her in the office, she was being kicked out of the office for trying to radicalize Sisko, right?
Correct.
Where she's like, I lived under the Cardassians and they suck and they're terrible. And he could have been like, you didn't have a choice. These Maquis could have just left, right? And now Sisko's like, what does she think I've been doing? I'm trying to talk to these guys. And he gives that speech, which is a great speech. Right. But he's giving it to someone who literally just stood there and basically said the exact same fucking thing to him.
Correct.
And she's just like, yeah, man, absolutely. Like, she could have been like, those are my words. I said that to you. I told you the exact same goddamn thing, and you kicked me out of your office. What are you telling me that for? Did you think I was Dax? Who are you trying to convince? Are you losing? I'm sorry, are we running a subplot? Is the B plot here that you're going crazy?
Since she gives her a knowing smile and says, go out and give that speech to Leggett Parn, like the other admiral who's here to see you.
This is a quick turnaround, and that's why I want to talk about this, because up until this point, Sisko has been I'm not letting people get hurt. I'm stopping this. These citizens are wrong. And then, after this talk, and again, it's why this fucking Calvin Hudson guy sucks so bad, is that, like, I get Sisko being here. It's the right place for Sisko to be. I don't feel like he's been adequately convinced on screen.
Agreed.
And there's no other way to say it than that. It was the foundation was not there to flip him over to the other side for this conversation. It is what it is, whatever. Now, Nechayev had her important meeting with Sisko in his office. This Cardassian admiral who's there with his very important thing, he flew all the way out to Deep Space Nine. He's going to have his conversation with Sisko at the shopping mall.
First, Sisko goes because Odo says he's apprehended one of the Vulcan's accomplices that was gun running, as we saw. And of course, it is Quark, who is in jail, where Quark is compelled by threat to reveal what dirty deeds he's been up to. And he tries to weasel his way out of it by making it clear that he didn't sell any guns. He just merely introduced her to someone who would sell her the guns.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's willing to testify against everybody, because if there is a rule of acquisition that says thou shalt snitch if it is profitable to do so, it's clearly there.
Mm-hmm.
And they comedically decide to just leave his ass in prison for now, because you've created a problem for us, Quark, and we're not ready to forgive you yet. Your free murders punch card for saving the station is used up. And so you're just going to chill here right now until I've decided I'm not mad at you.
Yeah, you got to go to the kiosk over there in the corner and recharge your card.
Yeah, we're going to have some sort of crisis that you solve before we're going to let you get away with any more serious crimes.
See if there's some Klingons you can bite.
You're reduced to misdemeanors only for the next 6 months. No felonies.
Give me an invoice of all the stuff you sold to this lady. And looks like Quark got her a pretty hot hookup. So they leave him in there. He's unhappy. We haven't seen any of his family in a while, but I'm sure they're out there causing hijinks.
We'll see him soon enough. So after he leaves that meeting is when Leggett Parn decides to have a extremely sensitive geopolitical discussion within the local shopping mall. And the premise of this conversation is we, the Cardassians, are going to throw Dukat, who is presently not here, under the bus to blame for everything, and say all of the gun running is his fault, and therefore we don't care about him and we want him to just be executed by the Maquis, and that's how we're going to solve this problem with the Federation, is we're going to use him as a scapegoat. Which, obviously, both Kira and Sisko pick up on when he leaves to say, we got to go find Gul Dukat because he didn't know anything about this. So there's a story here, and that is that the Cardassians are gun running, and they are trying to use him to get out of their misdeeds.
Well, Kira's fine to let him die. Kira and Dukat obviously go back, and as far as she's concerned, letting him die to people that he has harmed in his past is perfectly acceptable. Sisko makes a great point. if the Cardassians want him dead, we should want him alive.
Yeah, if we actually
This
want to
is
solve the problem, this is a tell.
Hey, it's time to pack up the RV. We're going to go on a camper trip. We got to find out where this guy has gone, and we got to find a way to get him. I like that the runabouts, which are these large utility crafts, are no slouches, right? But you can't have these things go toe-to-toe with fucking the Deredex warbirds or...
Right.
But when you're talking about El Caminos with machine guns strapped in the back... Toyota Technicals, like,
yes,
it's a fair fight. So them being able to take the company car out into the ghetto for some real low budget space fights, or I'm sorry, low stakes space fights, which I will say when we do get to like the space combat portion of this, incredibly dynamic. And maybe it's because it's smaller craft engaging themselves and not like capital ships or whatever.
Right.
But it felt very dynamic. And I really like the space combat they had in this one.
Yeah, it's a good point about the runabouts. This is still, here at the tail end of their Federation presence at Deep Space Nine is purposefully not militaristic. They don't have a big presence here because they're really just administering to Bajoran territory. So they have basically 3 souped up police cruisers out there and no, military hardware. So,
yeah.
It's intended to not be threatening to the Cardassians because they're not trying to prompt a direct military conflict. They're just trying to, quote unquote, do their job, which is just to facilitate police actions on a low level for shipping and other things as you would if you were the Bajorans and capable of doing so. And so using the runabouts as this sort of utility vehicle, as you said, that really isn't capable of like going up against a Galar class, ship, let alone something more serious amongst the Romulans or Klingons, but is an even fight for some souped up modified civilian craft that have phasers and torpedoes. That's the spot to use them. So
then they do us a favor and they go, we got to figure out where these guys are. Let's do all the technobabble off screen.
We're just going to show up on the Hell Caves where they are.
A few times we just show up magically places because you said something to O'Brien and the transporter chief from the Enterprise is able to follow your warp signature and track you down. I don't care. You're telling a good story. These are semi-competent people. And most importantly, you're going up against civilians, right? Like that's the real spackle in all this is that your B tier, C plus tier Federation guys working at a gas station are still more than a match for the civilian population, even with dummy Calvin Hudson over there fumbling his way through things. Cut to some hands on Gul Dukat's face in the old Vulcan mind meld mantra, and we've got Vulcan hottie.
Yeah, your favorite space hottie ever.
Pretty much. And seeing her misusing Vulcan magic for interrogation and failing, fucking great.
Yes.
So
and Dukat's sort of self-satisfied smug the entire time of like, oh, it's not working, is it?
We're going to interrogate you, Dukat. Well, don't threaten me with a good time. And
let's see what you do.
He's having a fucking blast. He's gotten himself kidnapped, which, was not his intent. But this guy's making the most out of it. He's antagonizing him. He's gloating about Cardassian, how great it is. He's doing personal flex that, my psychokinetic muscles in my brain are too much for you to override. And he's doing his own cross interrogation, right? He's had suspicions that this Maquis thing was real, and now he's getting front row seats to how they operate. He's seeing that they're a joke. And basically licking his lips that like, man, we're going to tear into these guys and really fuck shit up once, it's go time. If I survive this, but we'll see.
You have all the Federation's weaknesses and none of its strength. You have all their ideals and none of their technology and firepower, right? And you are unprepared for what it is that you are attempting to do. You're not fucking terrorists. You're not even close, And this is where Dukat just starts to take over the episode, and rightfully so. He is the most interesting thing that's going on here. And the show makes a bold choice in making what ends up being its primary villain. Someone that you get to know, someone who has an arc, someone who evolves, and someone who occasionally you want to like. You want to root for him.
What do you mean occasionally?
Trust me, he'll wear out that welcome eventually, but like where he shows up and they just do so much where you're like, man, I want to like this guy, and then they hit you in the face with the consequences of liking him enough that you always hate yourself for doing so, but you never stop trying, you know? And he ends up, like you said, interrogating all of them until Mr. Fantastic, aka Odo, and Cisco and Bashir show up and have a terrible gunfight and manage to subdue this entire cell of Maquis, save one guy, where they do the go tell everyone else what happened here bit with him and collect on Dukat and bring on him and all the prisoners home.
Again, thankfully, we get skipped over any sort of Scooby-Doo flight out to go find this guy. I did want to say, Dukat has a A++ evil villain laugh.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they brought in like an evil laughing coach, or if Mark was just able to practice in his makeup in his trailer and fucking
nail it. Is this the role Mark Almo's born for? Is he just was born with the best evil laugh? The best evil, charming evil smile, I think I said at the beginning. He's just perfect. No notes. He nails it. All the way through all that makeup, too. Again, like, just like with Armin Shimmerman, where he's like wearing layers of makeup, yet he seems to act through it in a way that's spectacular. Same with Dukat. Like, you never are wondering what the fuck is going on with this guy. He's punching through all of those layers of makeup and making it look like it's his skin.
It's amazing, this talent pool that they've tapped for Cardassians, of just people that nail their roles, that's really all they did. And that's all you need to do to have a fucking terrific career for people who are paying attention.
Yeah.
So the last time Ben Sisko jumped to conclusions, Matt, his way to a terrorist hideout, he got ambushed by a bunch of dudes with Type 3 phaser rifles, right?
Correct.
So he goes to rescue this really important guy that is the key to figuring this thing out, and he brings the guy who doesn't use guns.
Correct.
And he brings a doctor who's really good at racquetball.
Correct.
His commander, she's really scrappy with a phaser, and she knows her way around like a rebel fight, right?
Correct. Not there.
She gets left. Yeah. How about that one guy that's like Colonel Burton from Command and Conquer, Super Commando, Miles O'Brien? That's right.
Yeah. Nah.
Oh, so he goes against this group that was like 8 people plus with phaser rifles, and he brings a doctor and a guy without a gun. So he brings 2 phasers into a hostage situation of guys with rifles.
And Gumby.
And Gumby. Who, let's be fair, if this was T-1000, I wouldn't be making any of these jokes right now. But he is so judicious with his special effects usage that the fact that they even had him bother to tentacle whip a guy off a ladder. They could have just stunned him in the fucking back. Like, the guy had his... Odo has been zero value add lately, other than snark. So they walk in from
the phaser fight is also just one of the worst. Of, we're gonna all stand here and somehow the heroes don't get shot and somehow the villains all get shot, and it doesn't make any sense.
The villains who take cover, by the way,
yes,
and they have their rifles, and I don't think they shoot one fucking time. And yeah, just Bashir and Sisko zero all these guys out.
Yep,
ridiculous.
Absolutely, it's so dumb.
And then the leader guy's climbing up a ladder, all the ways he could have gone, and he puts his rifle down to climb up a ladder, and then Odo doesn't shake the ladder to knock him off. He gets the special effect to rip him down. Dukat's like, kill these fucking guys. It's like, what are you waiting for? And this is where we really start seeing the hesitation out of Sisko, who has not, again, closed the doors on these guys. He's got a wide open door. Stop fucking around. Let's fix this. Everybody gets rounded up, Vulcan Hottie included. I didn't see her actually get shot, which was interesting. But they take the leader guy, and they go, you are not going to jail. You are going to go and take Calvin Hudson a message, and that is to knock it off, tell him to put that uniform back on, and come meet me, and we can work this thing out nice. I have successfully caged Death Row Cisco for yet another scene. There's a better way to do this.
So when they get back to Deep Space Nine, we're actually going to cut to Dukat enjoying a meal, which apparently is how he de-stresses. You know, after a long day of being a smarmy evil villain, he's going to have a nice feast in front of him. And
it's a reverse date where he did all the foreplay first, and now's the dinner.
And he has a conversation with Cisco where he finds out that he was left to hang out to dry.
Before that, because Cisco fucking sets this dude up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Cisco lets him go on about how basically like hypocritical the Cardassians are. Because, hey, what's going to happen to these terrorists if they get, are they going to be found guilty or innocent? Well, if they are found innocent, they'll go free. Well, that's unfair because in Cardassia, we give the people what they want, and that is justice winning always. And there's no court trials that happen before the verdict is reached. And once we know what we want it to be, it's all theater, basically. And we let people see. And do you think that Dukat is a believer in this system, or that he understands that this is corrupt, but he thinks it's funny?
I believe he believes in the system because he is at his core a true Cardassian supremacist authoritarian, is critical to his characterization. We're literally going to see a Cardassian trial in like 2 episodes. So it's an excellent foreshadowing on the part of the writers to have this dialogue in here where he espouses its virtue.
So now you've got a true believer that the Cardassian government is infallible, that those who are put up as guilty are in fact guilty, and that he enjoys the public spectacle of these people being humiliated and justice being visited on them.
Correct.
What's the line he says? That Cardassians don't make mistakes.
Yes.
And he's saying that as he has just poured himself a nice cup of maple syrup. I love watching the aliens.
I believe that is Kanar. I believe that is the disgusting Cardassian alcoholic beverage of choice.
I believe that's actually Aunt Jemima. I believe that's straight up maple syrup. And I'll be curious to see if like that becomes a prized commodity during the Cardassian Earth Wars of like trying to take over Canada, maybe. So now that he's got Dukat set up on this thing, that Cardassians don't make mistakes. Those who are guilty are truly guilty, and there's no in between. Oh, hey, why was it, by the way, you that rescued me and not Cardassians? And, he gets his little grandstand moments like, I'm sure that this place was just surrounded by Cardassian gunships, wondering where the missing Gaul went. And, Cisco's like, actually, no, like 2 episodes ago,
we evaporated a guy here. Yeah,
Garrett
just like
killed somebody in the
Garrett just killed a guy. No one cared. We didn't care. They didn't care. No one cared.
There was a Galore warship here, and they just left. They didn't even like ask what happened. We didn't have to lie and say he caught an Uber. They just fucking pulled out without him. No, there was no ships. Leggett, whatever, showed up. Oh, I'm sure he made all sorts of nasty threats on my behalf. He must have really given it to you good. No, actually, he said that you're responsible for all the gun writing and that we should have just left you there to die.
Cisco makes a point of at that moment being like, I'm sure you would have had a wonderful trial. Like your guilt would have been displayed through your justice system also all too eloquently. It was just a perfect. There it is. There you go, buddy. Thank you for monologuing. You just set yourself up. It's good.
This is why you don't say more than you have to, by the way, buddy, because you never know when you're going to be forced to eat your own words. Super great body language coming off of Dukat as he is forced to see that he has been fucked, that he has to eat humble pie.
He is caught off guard by all this, very clearly.
Very much. And he is not worried about keeping up this public persona of lockstep with the Cardassians because he knows just how hard he's fucked right now. If they showed up there and they said that stuff to the Federation, God knows what he's going to be walking back into when he goes back to Cardassia, what the state of his command is, the Second Order.
And this is really where his story arc ends up going for the first kind of like segment of it, is him coming to grips of what do I not fucking know about what's going on, about what Cardassia is up to, and what his place is in the sort of military civil structure and his political influence.
So what is
which we already saw play out a little bit in Cardassians, the episode with the war orphan, but it's coming into more relief now. It is more specific to him.
So he was in charge of the invasion of Bajor or the occupation of Bajor?
Occupation. The occupation went on for like 50 years. So he administered after the invasion.
As commander of the Second Order, which is vague, or is that like very clear, like what this thing is?
So he was the commander of Tarak Nor and the prefect of Bajor. So he was a military governor. I think this is his new job. Commander of the Second Order isn't really well defined. I think that he's supposed to basically be a flag captain of a essentially of a fleet, was the implication of that. But they don't really define that on screen very well. But point is, he is on the outs. And that means he's going to join a senior staff meeting in ops. Like, he's part of the team, because he's going to have to play nice with these Federation guys if he's got any hope of demonstrating he's not guilty of what he's been accused of. And that's when we start to see some delightful tension between him and the do-gooder Federation folks that he is going to be working with.
He also, in that meeting with Sisko, openly admits, like, yeah, they're being supplied. I thought I knew if the Bacnor had weapons on it. Clearly I didn't. Clearly I'm being cut out of these decisions. I don't know if I was surprised that he starts opening up to Sisko this way, but like it's his only real way forward, because we know if he just goes back as a good soldier, they're going to make him fall on his sword.
Correct. He has to humiliate the conspiracy if he's any hope of having a career. So he's in ops. He's explaining, of course, that the gun running is being done by a different group instead of the group that was doing it during the Siege trilogy. It's the Zeppelites, because they've never been caught. And he offers to help track them down. And this is also where he starts to have a lot of on-screen tension with Kira, specifically, where Kira is constantly very aggro towards him, and he is very deflective and purposefully kind of creepy and solicitous of her attention in a way that clearly discomforts her, which is something they just basically do from now until the end of the show.
Well, we already knew that he had a thing for her, right?
Yeah.
He has
we had a sense of
little
it, yeah.
note that he was taunting her, saying that she was a page or whatever to the real terrorists.
Mark Almo talks a lot about how he loved playing the Gul Dukat really wants to fuck Kira line, because Mark Almo, wanted to fuck Panavister. And so he just was like, I'm just going to use this tension in the scene. I'm just gonna live here with this, and I'm just gonna continue to play on this whenever we have scenes together, and I'm never gonna let it go. And it's awesome. It provides a consistency through their scenes together for fucking seasons that ties it all together. Of like, he really wants to fuck her so fucking bad, to the point where other characters start commenting on it. Like, it ends up being a whole storyline. This is the beginning right here. It's like, this is where it starts, where he's like kind of trying to flirt with her by being authoritative in her presence, and she's a little bit turned on by it, but also repulsed by it. You know?
They don't really cover anything like too amazing here. other than Sisko reinforcing that they are not at war with these Federation colonists, that he wants to pull punches as much as possible, and he's really hoping that they can resolve this peacefully and get everybody back compliant. And Dukat's just like, do you think they're going to give you the same considerations here? Because these guys are off their off reservation on this stuff. Like you're playing too weak, too kind-hearted, and that'll be the focus, I think, of their relationship moving through the rest of this episode of Cardassians shoot and kill and don't ask questions, and the Federation wants to hug and play nice.
And the plot goes out of its way to kind of demonstrate that Gul Dukat's method is more effective in certain circumstances with the Zeppelite freighter when they encounter it. Sisko tries to play it soft. He tries the Federation line of attempting to give them every opportunity to be honest. And the only way they end up resolving the circumstance is Gul Dukat steps in and basically makes a credible threat that the guy believes. And it works.
Yeah, so
they don't have to escalate to violence, but they have to escalate to the credible threat of violence at a minimum.
They pull up on this freighter. It's all shielded up. They can't read what's in there.
It can go warp 9.8, so if it wants to leave, it's going to leave him in the dust.
They call the captain. It's Grappler Zorn from Encounter at Farpoint, a.k.a. Raziel from Legacy of Kain.
No kidding.
Hell, dude, I can spot this guy's voice anywhere. I played so much Legacy of Kain. And this guy's conflicted because he's like, fuck off, Federation. This is the DMZ. You got no authority here. I'm not gonna listen to you. And if you do board me, I'm gonna treat this as piracy. And then the Cardassian gets on the TV, and he's like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you helping him? I don't get it. You're a Cardassian. He's like, I'm not any Cardassian. I'm Gul Dukat, commander of the second. Or like, this dude's so full of himself. Just take off your pants and beat off while you're talking to this guy. Like that's how erect I think this little power play gets Dukat. And he's got, Kira Nerys sitting there, and he's like kind of looking over his shoulder like, hey, see what I did there? See what I did there? But yeah, in the end, threatening to kill this guy and drag his ship back works. They conduct the search off screen, and wouldn't you know it, there are weapons. So now they've effectively cut off the weapons that should have been going to the Cardassian colony secret weapon depot to allow them to escalate this war. And I think that's where you get the conversation between Quark and the Vulcan.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the more goated overall scenes in the episode, particularly because Quark kind of becomes serious for a moment and is actually able to convince a Vulcan of the illogic of their actions using the framework of the rules of acquisition to do so, which I don't think I was expecting when I rewatched this. I sort of forgot about this part, like how this resolved, and it demonstrates Quark is certainly willing to try and do whatever is necessary to get out of jail. So getting her to flip and confess and provide information is clearly how he's doing so.
So I thought this whole thing was going to be him trying to get her to say things in a recorded cell and like, okay, that's the missing piece of something we need. But it's really just a casual conversation between Quark and this lady, and him doing a great job highlighting like how absurd this entire conflict is, and that even, the fucking logical Vulcans have allowed themselves to be consumed by this this passion that's inciting a war. And that's why I really like this character. So if you've got Vulcans who are participating in this as Federation citizens in this terrorist stuff, like, it's a credible situation. It's a shame that the actual nuts and bolts of why this Maquis is formed instead of everybody just getting the fuck out of there is so weak. But like having aliens involved with it, later on you'll have Kelvin show up and he's got like Klingons and some like Bolians or something. It's not just humans being irrational here. And I think, Quark does a great job like breaking down the math of like, now is the time for peace. Why you
can be
guys
found at a bargain price?
The economics of peace, yeah.
There's a tension where neither side has an advantage, which means both sides are willing to negotiate. Like, it's very logical, as he points out to her, that his position is correct, and it helps him prevail in the argument. Which, given where Quark was used essentially as a buffoon that was overtaken by his desire to constantly be romancing every woman within sensor range, it's a nice shift for him to like go completely serious and say, I obviously need to get out of jail. The only way I'm getting out of jail is if I get you to do what no one else can apparently do, which is to talk. And he, of everyone, finds the way to do that. And he does it by beating her in an argument, which you never would have expected Quark to do. But yet, makes perfect sense that he could. I love it. So after they get the information and they know what's going on and what the plan is, that's when they can finally kind of bring us to the climax of the episode. It begins with a really like stupid move on the part of Sisko that makes no sense for the purposes of dramatics, which is he goes back to the Maquis colony with, once again, Cal Hudson's fucking uniform to deliver a threat to everyone to say, some of you might be in the Maquis. Looking at you, guy, I let go. Some of you may know people who are in the Maquis. Either way, here's the deal. Any of you that decides to commit military action against the Cardassian colony are an enemy of the Federation. We will stop you. End of story. I have to make it clear. Those are the stakes. We're not going to stand aside. We're going to actively oppose you. Which, A, going down by yourself to your enemy's stronghold to threaten them, I don't care if you're Death Row Sisko, probably not a great plan. And then second, walking into the middle of a room surrounded by those enemies so they can then just conveniently like roll in, surround you with guns, and then conveniently not shoot you again, is starting to strain a bit of credulity as it relates to these people being operational terrorists with any sense of self.
Again, if you had someone good, I don't know why, but I'm seeing Calvin Hudson portrayed by Bruce Willis as like my ideal. I think that would have been a great pair up. I think if he could have sold his end of things as an impassioned leader and a idealist who was, forced past his means, that, yeah, he would cut Sisko as many breaks as Sisko is cutting him. But again, the other side of the table just feels very lazy and shitty. It makes it silly. It is a great record for Sisko going into mismatched encounters with the Maquis and continuing to survive. I don't know how you do 2 versus 8 was good numbers, but 1 versus 15.
That's rough. I don't think Death Row Sisko might still fall,
Yeah. It's everybody's kind of ultimatums on the table. And it's Cal solidifying, I will never go back. He takes his phaser out, points it at Sisko, who has his phaser, and actually goes to like draw his phaser out. But Cal shoots the doggy bag full of Starfleet uniform and disintegrates it, and lets him know that he's done with his government service.
So that's when we get to the grand conflict of 3 Federation runabouts versus 2 Jem'Hadar, or not Jem'Hadar, 2 Maquis raiders, I guess. And like you said, it's more like fighter aircraft rather than capital ships fighting against each other. A little bit more action oriented, a little bit more of a pace of what's going on that seems small scale, but in a realistic way, as they defend the Cardassian weapons depot that they have uncovered. So, while on one hand, obviously, we've already put an end to the weapons smuggling, this is them putting an end to the Maquis attempting to interdict and preemptively strike at these facilities so that they can try and lower the tension and prevent general war from breaking out between the Federation and the Cardassians as a consequence of this sort of proxy conflict. There's a lot of, now Dukat is riding shotgun with Sisko, and he has got his console lit up, and he's part of the team, right? It's Sisko and Dukat in one, it's Kira and Dax in another, and it's O'Brien and Bashir in the other. I think that's the breakout.
Who's running the station, Joe? Odo? Quark?
That would leave Odo at the station.
I get you got to have your heroes present on stuff, but like, this is real important. You got the doctor flying a ship. Like there was nobody else with a gold jumpsuit you could have put in.
Where's
Like
Lieutenant Porkins when you need him? Get his
you
ass in here.
I did like that when Nechayev showed up. One of the first things she said was like, "Do you want Gooman to really be your chief of security? Or are you ready to get some Starfleet in here?"
And they actually play into that later. Like, none of this is wasted, man. I love pointing this out to you because then when it happens, you can kind of, no mistakes are made when those kinds of comments are made.
I wish that they would have had, because Runabout Seat 4, I wish they would have had like background extras manning these things for as important as this is supposed to be, and the fact you've got the fucking doctor flying this stuff around. The spackle is applied like, gee, do you think they're going to show up here when we've clearly telegraphed that we know what's going on? They're not just going to like wait a day or a week and fuck up our plans. No, they know they have to act now because
the Cardassians will move the weapons depot if they don't do it now. Now that everyone knows where it is, they have to come get it now, or they're going to lose their opportunity.
That's all it takes, man. Just a little bit of effort. Now there's a reason for everybody to be there at the same time to have a motorcycle fight.
They have the dramatic fight where maybe the most predictable thing happens, which is all the ships are disabled effectively, but no one dies. There are no real consequences. Hudson is unsuccessful in his attack, but Sisko is unwilling to kill him, and therefore he is able to escape. That is how it boils down. Much to Dukat's deep regret and exhortations otherwise. That's kind of where the show reminds you he's the bad guy, right? He's been a little useful. He's been a little right. He seems pretty reasonable. But he's definitely pro-murder, and to the point where Death Row Sisko finally comes back out and puts his ass back in the chair when he stands up to try and do it himself. Like, he ain't having it. He's just with his left hand. He's going to put his ass back. Like, sit down, Dukat. This is my business. You are here as an accessory, not in charge.
Please, I'm trying to have an impassioned phone call with my friend as we're breaking up.
Yes, I'm ending a lifelong friendship, Dukat. Would you please shut the fuck up for a little bit?
Show some respect. And that's kind of where they wrap, right? Like,
they get back to the station. Dukat leaves. Sisko is authoritatively mentions he's not going to lose any sleep over Dukat's disapproval of his decision not to kill Cal Hudson. And that's when Kira comes back in for a final wrap, right? Like, hey, everyone's happy. There's no war. Federation's happy. Cardassia essentially is happy, even though they kind of got exposed because it prevented the outcome they were attempting to avoid, which is getting caught and then having to re-engage in hostilities with the Federation. And Sisko laments, like, I feel like I only bought us time. Like, this isn't gonna hold. This is destined to fail. And I'm wondering what's going to happen next.
I'm wondering if Sisko's going to have to go back to Nechayev and be like, hey, so might have left some details out.
Oh, it turns out Cal Hudson was a traitor.
Oh my God.
Right after you came in, I found out. I went to go talk to him like you asked, and it turns out he was evil. And it came as a total surprise.
And then I sent a text message from the colony, but they had that technology jammer from the slave plantation, and my text message couldn't reach you. So that's why you didn't know until I just told you just now. After one of my runabouts had its backpack shot off, and I got a lot of damages we're trying to fix here.
We tried to stop him, and he got away, that wily rascal. But turns out he's not part of the team anymore. This is why you're still a commander, Ben. I don't want to give you that fourth pip yet. I just can't do it.
I'm sorry. I was so busy being a religious leader for the Bajorans, I forgot to tell you. I was prophesying.
You imagine like the HR people like looking at the file. They're all sitting around. They're like, I mean, who else are we going to send? Like, they're just resolved. Like, what are we going to do? Right? Like, do we really want to send the Captain DeSoto's of the world into this to lead him alive? Like, we need him where he is. He's the only one who can stand the chaos of circumstances and survive. But yeah, that wraps up where we're the kind of the two-parter here. We don't do too much with the Maquis the rest of the season, but they certainly make their presence felt through the rest of Deep Space Nine and into the Dominion War and everything else, of course. So
again, the Maquis, it's such a rickety concept. You just almost had some real shit go down. A Federation officer has defected, and I have to assume that Sisko is going to report this thing now, right?
Of course, he has to.
You're not going to put real Federation attention on getting out there and like fixing this fucking situation, putting Federation monitors. Like maybe Section 31 is going to get involved and like, hey, you know, we've allowed this situation to fester, or there's some real reason why common sense steps are not being applied to this volatile situation right now.
Well, remember, Preemptive Strike is the TNG episode where they kind of try to do that, where they send Ro Laren in to be a mole and spy on it and try to, you know, maintain some kind of monitoring of the circumstance that goes beyond mere, you know, signet, right? Like the Federation isn't passively allowing this to happen, but they become stymied in their attempts to control it.
I guess forced relocation is not really an option. I don't know.
Like forced relocation was the first option. The failure of the forced relocation is, you know, not necessarily forced, optional, but highly encouraged relocation was encouraged. And these are the people who didn't want to leave. And the Federation was in the business of forcing anyone to do anything. So they allowed them to live with the consequences of their actions. And it just turns out that was the wrong play.
Yeah.
And I think Nechayev even says in this episode, if I recall, that they should have just forced them all to leave. They should have forcibly relocated them. They should have taken them out of Cardassian space once it became that. They should never have been there to begin with. It was a mistake to allow them to stay.
Well, mistakes happen.
Well, we don't have a mistake in our next episode. Not a one. What is it?
Season 2, episode 22, The Wire. The crew of Deep Space Nine looks at the narcotics scene in Bajor through the eyes of law enforcers as well as the drug dealers and users. Other facets of the planet are explored in the series as the government and bureaucracy, schools, and news media. This episode was created by former police reporter David Simon, who also wrote for many of the episodes. Oh, I'm sorry. That was The Wire.
I can't stop thinking about a Star Trek version of The Wire where like Stringer Bell is Gul Dukat or something, like, you know, like
Ira Stephen Bear's like, what is going on with Bajor? Is this a magical world of make believe? There's dust monsters and dream creatures. This is Azeroth. This isn't real. We need to tell a gritty story of Bajor out in the gutter with drugs and dirty cops.
Heroin. Lots of heroin.
Toilet brittle. Bashir tries to help when Garrick suffers a painful headache from an implant in his brain.
This is the Garrick. Finally, we get to understand his backstory.
Hey, I like that. Give me that.
Yeah, and this is great. This is launches 1,000 ships as it relates to Cardassians, as it relates to the Obsidian Order, as it relates to Garrick himself, as it relates to Bashir. /fiction. Fantastic. Wonderful episode. Very much looking forward to reviewing it with you. And so we also look forward to all of our fans joining us. Quick shout out to our YouTube commenters. I love you guys. You are always offering very substantive commentary on our episodes. I love reading it. I try to reply to as much of it as I can. And you're helping the algorithm in your ways of interacting with it. So please keep it up, and you have my sincere gratitude for doing so, as we have gratitude for everybody that listens to V'ger Please and follows along, watches, and interacts with us through various social media platforms, Discord, I think primarily at this point. So if you want to be a part of that, you can always just email me at vgerplease@gmail.com, reach out to me on Twitter at Intern of Doom or at vgerplease, and I will happily get you connected. Till next time, see ya.